Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Zeynep Gökçe. Israel has carried out airstrikes on a Yemeni port just a day after a Houthi missile landed near Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport. This comes as Israel vows to expand its war on Gaza, with the blockade of aid to the enclave now reaching international waters. A ship carrying humanitarian supplies was hit by drones near Malta. Organisers say Israel is to blame. While Tel Aviv has not publicly reacted, Israeli officials insist there's enough food in the blockaded enclave. They've also dismissed the ICJ hearings on Israel's obligations to Palestinians in Gaza. A team from Türkiye was also present at the hearings, where they accused Tel Aviv of using hunger as a weapon. Meanwhile, Israel has ordered tens of thousands of reservists to prepare for an expanded Gaza offensive. It's been reported that the plan includes a full occupation of the area, leaving only a small humanitarian zone in the south. The move sparked domestic backlash, with critics warning it endangers the remaining hostages held in Gaza. Can the ICJ ruling change the course of events? And will it be any different from the previous one? For more on the future of the Gaza Strip, joining me now from Birmingham, UK, is Palestinian analyst Kamel Hawash. From Berlin, Anisha Patel, Research and Legal Action Head at Law for Palestine. And from Istanbul, Vehbi Baysan, Associate Professor at Ibn Khaldun University. Thank you all for joining me. Now, after Israel violated the ceasefire in March, we were all hoping that it could get back on track. But now Israel is saying it's going to expand the war. Kamel, what kind of an expansion are we talking about here, and what will it include?
Well, first of all, the international community should have demanded that Israel observes the ceasefire. It was an agreement and it had 3 stages. We would have been in a much better place now if it had. In terms of the operations it is planning, it really, according to its far-right extremist ministers, wants to really reoccupy Gaza, though they frame it in a way which makes it sound like it's not an occupation, but effectively what they want to do is to push all the Palestinians down into the southern area and then overtake most of Gaza in preparation, I think, for them to be pushed out into Egypt so that they ethnically cleanse Gaza of Palestinians.
Yes, and we will come back to Israel's plans. But Anisha, why don't you tell us about the recent ICJ hearings on Israel blocking aid to Gaza? Now, it will take time for them to deliver their verdict, but what do you expect? And will this be effective in pressuring Israel? And how will it be different from the previous ICJ ruling?
So in terms of the time, we're hoping that the court treats this case urgently, as it has done so far. It has kind of expedited the process. So we're hoping that it takes a much shorter time frame to get an advisory opinion in this regard. And I think some of the key arguments that were made this week are really, really critical in this conversation, which are that Israel's presence in and of itself in the entire occupied Palestinian territory is illegal. Therefore, Israel has no right to actually decide what aid comes in on out. Israel is also in breach of its obligations as a UN member state, but also as an occupying force, and that Israel is actually not allowing third states to fulfill their duties that come under the genocide prevention category by blocking aid into Gaza. So this advisory opinion is critical, that it comes in such a moment of widespread famine and forced starvation that is being inflicted upon the Palestinian people. In terms of effectiveness, as all international law measures, this will be only as effective as other states make it to be. So it is incumbent on third states now to ensure that they're actually pushing for such an opinion, because really we don't need this opinion even at this point. We already have enough legal work material that has been worked on that can allow third states to enforce sanctions, embargoes, push Israel to actually withdraw from the OPT and allow aid to come in.
Yes, and Vehbi, Türkiye also made a presentation at the ICJ. What were some of its arguments? Could Turkey's stance encourage other regional countries to be more assertive in legal and diplomatic steps against Israel?
Well, we very much hope so. But how much of it will be effective is, of course, up in the air, because so far probably there is no international law, as well as war crimes, or you name it, has not been already bypassed by Israel, because you're talking about defenseless people, civilians, innocent people under constant bombardment. And Turkey, I mean, putting all the efforts to draw international communities' attention to the subject. But it seems that the President Netanyahu's government has all the green light from the US, namely from, I mean, it's making things very complicated. But what is there is that people, children dying, babies dying, and starvation is there too. And but I think collective effort should be the current aim to end all these. I don't know if we can say enough has been done. It's never there as long, and so far a result has been achieved. So regional governments are very wary of it, and I think in the international arena they're doing their best to insert some pressure on Israel. But when you look at the so-called civilized countries, namely Europe and the West in general, not enough has been done to save at least remaining rest of the people and give them the right to live as human beings. At the moment, they're just basically their lives just disregarded. So I think Turkey's efforts are very good. I'm sure it has attracted a lot of attention, but whether or not it would insert enough, it's a question mark. Again, I'm repeating myself, but effort should be constantly there until all these massacre and genocide stop.
Right, and just before Israel announced it would expand the war, it also said it was calling up reservists to do this, and tens of thousands of them. And it's been reported that these reservists have been ignoring those calls. So if this happens, Kamal, could such a development undermine Israel's plans?
First of all, Israel is continuing in its aggression on a daily basis, killing tens of Palestinians without this expansion. Yes, it is important that, as has been reported, that reservists are refusing to serve for two different reasons. Some disagree with the war continuing, but most of them are clearly worried about going back because they see that almost on a daily basis, there are soldiers who are being killed because they are entering Palestinian areas illegally and being faced by militant groups who want to free their homeland. So it is understandable that quite a high proportion, something like, I understand, about a quarter of the reservists don't want to go back. This, together with the messages from the hostage families, should be enough in a democracy, which Israel claims to be, to say to the leaders, you should listen to us, stop this war, let's get to a phase where we begin to talk about permanent peace. Because really, we all want the killing to stop, and we want people to live with dignity and to try and rebuild their lives. Like the Gazans, 2 million people have had the whole of the area they live in destroyed, and for them to get back to any normality, for the children to go back to school, etc., is going to take some effort and some time. The quicker we get to that, the better. And if the reservists, by refusing to serve, push in that direction, that's a good thing.
Yes, and these soldiers, Anisha, the Hindra Foundation is pursuing Israeli soldiers worldwide for war crimes committed in Gaza. And it's saying that the evidence is actually on their social media. They're posting these videos. So how much of a challenge would it be to bring these people to justice?
I mean, the work that the Hindra Foundation is doing is exceptional in that they're actually taking international law norms, because now there are ICC arrest warrants for the top leaders, but there's also crimes that have been articulated in the South Africa case. They're taking all of these norms and bringing them into different national jurisdictions where they're enforceable. And I think this is really, really important, because it then kind of sets up a conversation of what does bringing an end to Israeli impunity, which has brought us to the moment that we find ourselves in, could look like. And this is what it could look like. It could look like soldiers that are actually committing crimes on the ground being prosecuted, no matter where they are, under universal jurisdiction, under national jurisdictions and legislations available in different countries. The primary challenge for an exercise like this is, of course, that it goes to the political and the judicial sections of different countries. So if you were to bring forward a case like this in a country, you would need political will for the prosecutor's office to actually take it up and to pursue it. But if we create enough mass mobilization in the countries, like our colleagues on the ground have been doing, it's actually possible to push this forward more effectively across the world.
So, Wepe, obviously, Israel has more soldiers, it has more military resources than Hamas, though the fighting has extended for, like, it's been going on for more than a year. Is it fair to say that war is not just a numbers game?
Well, it is not, because, attacking civilians, innocent civilians who cannot even defend themselves for air bombardment or even fire anything to shoot down any drones, etc. This is not a war. It's just basically cornering innocent people in a piece of land where they cannot even run for their lives, and killing them indiscriminately. So therefore, in Israel, I know some people still keep their sanity, questioning whether or not these kind of attacks are targeting or achieving the targets. This is to say that Hamas is still there. Since the beginning, this was a war allegedly against Hamas, but Hamas is still there. And we don't know how many hostages Israel killed, probably even deliberately. You never know. And also, we know that still the hostages are there and their lives are in danger. So this is beyond any kind of a reasonable military operation where you have clear targets and that you can achieve. So we can see that the demonstrations in Israel also further proof for that. And they're questioning whether strategies or tactics are doing anything to reach the target. But then this brings us into another question: why all these things happening in this indiscriminate killing and many more? I mean, we're talking about the generations as being really affected. Probably there's no one in Gaza that didn't lose any member of their family. Sometimes entire members of families buried under rubble. We don't know how many. Official number, probably we should multiply with 4 or 5 times more. So it's all questionable, but there is, as our colleagues here said, that the soldiers participating in this act of genocide and massacres will pay dearly. I mean, I don't think international community will let it go, especially that there are many evidence against the people who does not pose any immediate threat to any kind of community there, and yet these things are happening.
So I want to move on to one of the recent developments, which is the attack on the flotilla. It was attacked off the international waters of Malta, allegedly by Israeli drones. But Israel is also insisting that it has the blockade, but it is also insisting that it designs hubs to deliver the aid. So aid groups in the UN have, of course, condemned this. But Kamal, what is Israel's agenda here? Its true agenda?
I think to me, Israel's true agenda is to get to a position where they can push the Palestinians out. They want to ethnically cleanse Gaza. They also want to put pressure on Hamas to free the hostages, who are really all military people and they're prisoners of war. They're not hostages, the remaining ones. And so it's doing that by starving the Palestinian people, using starvation as a weapon of war, which is collective punishment and is punishable under international law. And then changing the way the aid would be sent to the Palestinians. Now, the ship that was sailing towards Gaza was made up of humanitarian people with some aid. The aid they bring is not going to feed or provide medical supplies for the whole of the population, but it was an indication that where governments are failing, let's face it, there are tens of trucks on the Egyptian side waiting to go in. Israel is refusing to let them in. The international community is not insisting that the aid goes in. So those on the, and we remember the Mavi Mamre flotilla, which was trying to break the siege in 2010, which was attacked by Israel. This time it is attacking ships in international waters. It's attacking Lebanon. It's attacking Syria. It's attacking Yemen. It is quite unheard of for a country to be doing what Israel is doing and not to face a single sanction, when in fact it should be thrown out of the United Nations. It should have sanctions on it, just like Russia has faced sanctions for being an occupier. But there is, unfortunately, support for Israel, which goes beyond the humanitarian situation needed, and shows the hypocrisy of the West, which must end soon. Otherwise, out of the 2 million people in Gaza, who knows how many will lose their lives, one through starvation, and then through these continuous bombardment with American weapons that Trump has sanctioned.
Yes, so Kamal just said that Israel is still a member of the United Nations despite all what's happening. And this actually brings me to my next question, Anisha. The UN strongly condemns Israel. It's like all the time. But Israel is still a member of the UN, even without a US veto in the Security Council. Would Israel's suspension from the UN, do you see this as a realistic possibility?
Absolutely. And if there was ever a time for it, I think it was yesterday already. The General Assembly, which is not incumbent on vetoes like the Security Council, has tools for discharging its obligations under the advisory opinion, for example, that was declared in July last year by the International Court of Justice that says that Israel is in breach of peremptory norms of international law, primarily that it is frustrating the Palestinian right to self-determination. So the General Assembly, through its Credentials Committee, can actually initiate a review of Israel's presence and representation and vote in favor of unseating it. We have done this before. We have seen this when apartheid South Africa in 1974 was suspended from the UN. Until the end of the apartheid in 1994, it remained suspended for 20 years. Israel has, outside of generally what it has done to the Palestinian people, it has also defied all its obligations as a UN member state. So its obligations that are incumbent upon it because of the UN Charter, because of its membership to the UN, have completely been breached by Israel. So there are more than necessary reasons legally that would allow for the Credentials Committee to actually bring forward this process of suspending Israel from the General Assembly. And again, as in all other fora, it is up to member states of the UN to push for an action like this. Sanctions was something that was incumbent on Israel decades ago for its violations. But today, it is more than critical that we have a complete embargo on the buying, selling, and transfer of arms, that we have economic sanctions that don't render aid and assistance to Israel's presence in all of the OPT. Because what we're seeing in Gaza today, we're already seeing escalations in the West Bank, and we fear that this project of forcibly displacing the Palestinian people is only going to expand if we don't put an end to it now.
Yes, and the Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, just was in the UAE to hold talks on Gaza and Syria. So Israel is also attacking Syria regularly. Vehbi, what is Israel's wider plan for the region?
Well, this is precisely what I said before. I mean, we're trying to make sense out of all these attacks, but under international law, you cannot just freely go and attack any country you wish. And as one of the Israeli academics put it many months ago, saying that it's not a Palestinian problem. Probably we should call it Israel problem, because it's the only one invades countries, takes chunks out of them. We know Sinai in the past, and we know West Bank, we know occupied Golan Heights and parts of south of Lebanon, etc. So we try always to make reasoning. Obviously, there isn't, and many Israelis can see that. So it's very important to keep the effort and make international community to understand that. Often the decision makers, they just do it. Probably they don't have anything else better to do. We don't know. But in the end of the day, people pay dearly as their lives. So Mr. Fidan's visits to the regional countries, we just named the Gulf states, is absolutely very important in an effort to stop all these killings. Nobody telling Israel to just pack up and leave the region. All they want is to establish a peaceful solution, two-state solution, and live in peace in the entire region. I'm sure Israel can contribute a lot to the region, and the region can contribute a lot in Israel. So we had peace agreements in the past, and it's all been disregarded. And the last one was Abraham Accords. It seems it's not going anywhere, although it just kind of had some sense, sort of a hope. So I think we should give a chance to peace. This is what I'm saying. But what the leadership trying to do is probably just save the day and just show public that they have this mighty power and they can exercise anytime, anywhere they wish to. But I mean, it's a human life. It's people, innocent babies, children, has been massacred, and it's going on. And now, as you said in the beginning of the program, we have like reservists are called upon, and they want to do more. I mean, this does as if what has been done so far, as Kamal was stating, is not enough, and now we're just doing more and more. And I'm not sure if the decision makers know at this stage where to stop or whether they can stop. So it's out of hand, it seems, because it's not achieving the targets other than killing civilians and innocent people.
Yes, and next week, US President Donald Trump has a planned visit to the region, and recently an Israeli defense official said, according to reports, that there's a window of opportunity for a ceasefire deal. Kamal, do you see this happening?
I'd hope that Trump would say, as he said before he came to power, he wanted this war to be over, as he did in the Ukraine and so on. But he's making no such statements. He's given Netanyahu the green light to continue to slaughter and kill and maim. So I'm not optimistic. I think Netanyahu's first objective is to stay in government and not to go and face charges himself on a personal basis. But that since the world is saying to Israel, you can do whatever you want, he is using that to supposedly provide Israel with more security by attacking resistance all around the region. But actually, he is just creating increased hatred to the concept of Israel as a state in the Middle East, more hatred to Israelis because they're the ones who go and serve in the army and kill and maim, which, in my view, isn't in the long-term interest of Israel, but rather is going to result eventually by its isolation by the people. Even if the governments continue to support it, I think Israel is in a bad place in terms of wanting to remain as a state in the region and to be accepted. It cannot be accepted as a genocidal criminal state.
All right, Kamal, Anisha, Vehbi, thank you all for joining me on Straight Talk. And that's all for this edition of Straight Talk with me, Zeynep Gökçe. If you've got any comments, please share them with us on X @StraightTalkTRT Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can find more exclusive content. Until next time, take care and goodbye.